Welcome to the AI Coach by Anil Nathu.
Great to be here.
Today, on this deep dive, we're really getting into something important, how decision intelligence evolved over time.
Right.
We're using a great overview from the AI Coach itself, and the plan is, well, to pull out the main ideas, the key moments, the big lessons learned in how we got better at making decisions using data.
Exactly. Consider this the highlight reel for you, the listener. We'll hit the core insights without getting you bogged down in all the tiny details.
It's a shortcut to understanding this whole journey, and it's fascinating, actually.
It really is. Tracing it back, you see this fundamental shift, moving away from just gut instinct towards these much more sophisticated data-backed strategies. The AI Coach piece nails this progression.
Okay, so let's dive right into those early days, the foundations. The article mentions the 50s and 60s as the real starting blocks. This move from intuition to, well, evidence. Who were the key players back then?
Well, the article rightly points to W. Edwards Deming back in the 1950s. His big idea, really revolutionary at the time, was using data, specifically statistical process control, to massively improve quality.
How so? By reducing uncertainty.
Precisely. In industrial processes, think about it. Before Deming, quality control was often just checking the finished thing. His cycle, the Deming cycle.
I know, check act.
That's the one, PDCA. It flipped the script, made quality this ongoing thing driven by data. And, his impact on Japan's economy after the war, it just shows how powerful this evidence-based management idea was, laid the groundwork.
Makes total sense. Using data to improve before things go wrong, not just after. Okay, and then the article brings up John Tukey in '62, coining data analysis. That feels like a big moment, right? Recognizing data as its own field.
Oh, absolutely pivotal. Tukey saw it coming. He understood that with computers getting better, statistics could be more than just theory. It could be a tool, a powerful one for actually exploring and, understanding the world through data.
So less about just proving a hypothesis.
Exactly. His focus on exploratory data analysis, EDA, they call it now, was about digging in, finding the patterns you didn't expect. It was a real shift. You could argue he really foreshadowed modern data science. And his ideas directly pushed the development of statistical software we all use now.
Wow. Okay, so manufacturing quality, then defining data analysis itself. And the third person from this early wave mentioned is Herbert Simon, 1960s. Bounded rationality. How does that connect?
Simon adds this crucial human angle. He pointed out that, hey, we don't always make the perfectly rational choice. Why? Because we've got limits, limited info, limited brain power, limited time.
Right. We can't process everything.
Exactly. So his idea of satisficing just choosing an option that's good enough acknowledges those constraints. And his model for how we decide things, intelligence, design, choice, gave an early structure for thinking about the actual process, limitations, and all. It's fascinating, really, how understanding our own limits paved the way for building systems to help us out.
Okay, got it. So those are the foundations. Then the article shifts to the 70s and 80s. Decision support systems, or DSS, emerge. Technology starts playing a real role.
Yeah, this is where the theory starts turning into tools. Peter Nahr, back in '74, actually used the term data science. He described it as using computers systematically to process data and pull out meaningful insights.
So even back then, the term existed.
In a nascent form, yeah. It shows people were already seeing the power of computation for understanding data.
And Michael S. Scott Morton, he sort of formalized the whole DSS concept in the 80s. What did these early systems actually do?
Scott Morton really nailed down the definition. DSS were interactive systems. They brought together data, analytical models, and a user interface to help managers grapple with, complex decisions.
Interactive being the key word.
Definitely. The core parts he identified, managing the data, managing the models, the UI, and crucially, the ability to do what-if analysis that was huge. Managers could finally play around with scenarios directly. We saw early uses in finance, manufacturing, marketing, showing this tech-driven approach had real legs.
Right. So moving into the 90s, this idea really catches on. Data-driven decision-making, DDDM. It's not just about tech anymore. Data becomes core strategy.
Precisely that. The article points to Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard from '92 as a really key step here.
A balanced scorecard. Right. Performance metrics.
Yeah, but more than just metrics. It was a framework to use data to link everyday decisions back to the big strategic goals. Across different areas, finance, sure, but also customers, internal processes, learning and growth. And crucially, understanding the links, the causal chains between these metrics. That was a big strategic step.
And consulting firms like McKinsey and Gartner jumped on this DDDM train too.
Oh, absolutely. They were instrumental in pushing DDDM and BI tools. business intelligence. Gartner actually coined business intelligence, a term we hear everywhere now. They really hammered home the message. Use data analytics, use BI, get a competitive edge. It drove a lot of adoption.
And we also see names like Thomas Davenport and Gene Harris doing important work on analytics around this time.
Yes, their early research was all about how companies could actually use analytics strategically to win. They talked about needing analytical capability inside the organization, building a data-driven culture. It wasn't just about buying software. It was about skills, mindset, using data to be different.
Okay, so the 2000s then see DDDM kind of grow up, right? Maturing alongside business intelligence. The tools get better, it becomes more standard practice.
That's a good way to put it. The article mentions Balasubramanian and Shankaran work in 2002 on decision-making portals.
Portals, like dashboards.
Sort of, but integrating knowledge management with BI. The idea was to give people actionable insights from analyzing transactional data, using things like data mining, making insights easier to get and use day to day.
Yeah, and the AI Coach article gives a really strong practical example.
Yeah.
Gary Loveman at Harris in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, that's a classic, textbook DDDM. Loveman used their total rewards program to gather just tons of customer data and analyze it obsessively.
To figure out what people wanted.
Exactly. Predict preferences, personalize offers, tweak operations, all based on the data. It was a masterclass in building a data-driven culture and showing the bottom line impact. Really powerful example.
And then Davenport and Harris pop up again in 2007 with their book, Competing on Analytics. Sounds like that really cemented DDBM. And just a reminder, we're pulling these insights from The AI Coach by Anil Nathu's overview.
Right. And yes, that book was huge. It basically laid out the argument. Companies that are good at analytics consistently beat their competitors. End of story. They formalized DDDM as the strategic approach and even gave companies a way to measure how good they were with their analytics maturity model.
Yeah.
It really shifted how businesses thought about data.
Okay, so that whole journey sets the stage for the 2010s and what the AI Coach calls the emergence of decision intelligence, or DI. This seems like the next step, moving beyond just data.
Exactly. DI isn't simply about having data or analyzing it. It's broader. It integrates AI decision theory. The whole goal is optimizing the actual decision process itself. Loring Pratt is credited with the term decision intelligence in the early 2010s.
And how did she define it?
As combining data science, AI, and decision theory, but with a real focus on modeling the decision and getting to actionable outcomes. Less about the data itself, more about the choice you're making.
Interesting. And others built on this, like Elrogal and Klashevsky in 2017.
Yeah, they stress something important. With big data, you need theory, you need models. Just finding patterns isn't enough if they aren't grounded, if they don't actually lead to meaningful decisions. Moving beyond just correlation, you know.
Understanding the why. The AI Coach piece also mentions Duan, Edwards, and Dwivey's work around the same time, looking at how AI and humans work together in decisions.
That's absolutely central to DI. It's not AI replacing humans, it's AI augmenting humans. Their research explored how AI could boost our decision-making, making the combination better than either alone. AI as a collaborator, that's key.
And Google's Project Oxygen in 2019 fits here too, as a real-world case.
It does. Google used data analytics, people analytics to understand what makes a good manager. Those data-driven insights directly influenced how DI thinks about using data to drive real improvements in how organizations decide things.
Okay, which brings us pretty much up to date, the 2020s. Decision intelligence is really taking shape now, solidifying as its own field. The AI Coach article highlights this phase.
Yeah, we're seeing more mature theories, more applications. Ahmad Al-Hawari's DACUS theory from 2020, for instance. It's a framework, decision process, decision maker, decision data, analytics, explicitly putting data right at the core, very aligned with DI thinking.
And DeLange and Pantoni's work on decision-driven analytics, that sounds like it gets to the heart of DI. Start with the decision, not the data.
Exactly. That's a really key shift they champion. Don't just analyze the data you happen to have. First, figure out what decision do we actually need to make? Then, what data and analysis do we need for that specific decision? It's a decision-first mindset, integrating human judgment, too. Super important.
And we see others focusing on the practicalities, like Korher looking at manager types and Wojtkiewicz on getting from insight to action.
Right. Korher's work shows DI isn't just tech. It needs changes in how managers think and how the organization works. And Wojtkiewicz focuses on that crucial last mile, using AI to make sure insights actually turn into actions, into outcomes. Closing the loop.
And the final piece mentioned in the AI Coach overview is Cloverpop in 2024, framing DI as this whole platform idea.
Yeah, that represents a really sophisticated view, blending human experts, AI, analytics, but also treating past decisions themselves as data. So you learn from your choices and continuously improve. It's about building a truly intelligent, adaptive decision-making system, way beyond just crunching numbers.
Okay, wow. So let's try to wrap up the key takeaways from this deep dive, drawing from that AI coach overview. We started with gut feel.
Then Deming brought in data for quality.
Tech enters with DSS.
Then DDDM makes data strategic with BI tools.
And finally, we arrive at decision intelligence, which is really decision-centric, bringing in AI, structured frameworks, focusing on optimizing the actual outcome.
That's the core journey. The big shift is from being data-centric, focusing just on the data, to being decision-centric with DI. It's about applying insights strategically within a clear process to get better results.
This has been incredibly useful, I think. A really clear walk through the evolution, thanks to that AI coach piece.
Right.
Hopefully, for you listening, this gives you that concise understanding we aim for.
And it probably raises a question for you, doesn't it? How does this shift, especially towards DI, being decision first, using AI, maybe change how you approach information, how you make choices, whether at work or just in life?
Yeah, maybe digging into some of those specific ideas like decision modeling or what folks like Pratt or DeLange are saying could be really valuable.
Food for thought.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us today. Visit the AI Coach website for more AI insights by Anil Nathu.